Hey everybody, welcome to the Do the Read series. I'm Kristina, Kristina, and today I'm indulging myself in my favorite book of the Anita Blake series, Incubus Dreams, and I'm reading my favorite chapters. I hope you will hit the like and subscribe and let me know I'm doing a good job. I will continue with my other series later today and tomorrow, but today I wanted to indulge myself by reading my Incubus Dreams. The first person I saw when I hit the parking lot wasn't any of the men. It was Ronnie, Veronica Sims, private detective. One time my best friend was standing off to one side from the door. She was hugging herself so hard it looked painful. She was 5'8", a lot of leg, and she'd added high heels and a short red dress to show off the legs. She'd once told me if she had my chest she'd never wear another high-neck shirt in her life. She'd been kidding, but when she dressed up, she showed off all that nice long stretch of leg. Her blonde hair was cut at the shoulder length, but she curled the edges under tonight so the hair bobbed above the spaghetti straps on her nearly bare shoulders. It was bobbing a lot because she was talking low and angry to someone I couldn't see. I took another step into the parking lot and the shadows cleared and I saw Louis Fame. Louis taught biology at Washington University. He'd had his doctorate and was a were rat. The university knew about the doctor but not about what he did on the full moon. He was an inch or two shorter than Ronnie, but compact but strong. His shoulders filled out the suit he was wearing nicely. He'd cut his dark hair short and neat since his last I'd seen him. His dark eyes were almost black, and his clean face was as angry as I'd ever seen it. I couldn't hear what they were saying, only the tone, and the tone was pissed. I realized I'd been staring and it was none of my business. Even if Ronnie and I still had been working out together 3 times a week, which we weren't, it still wouldn't have been any of my business. Ronnie had had problems with my dating a vampire, Jean Claude, in particular, but her main objection to the seemed to be the vampire part. At a time when I needed girl advice and sympathy, she only offered her own outrage and anger. We started seeing each other less and less over the last few months until it got to the point where we hadn't talked in a couple of months. I'd known she and Louis were still dating because he and I had mutual friends. I wondered what the fight was about, but it wasn't my fight. My fight was waiting out here in the parking lot, leaning against the side of my Jeep. All 3 of them were leaning against the Jeep. It was like a lineup or an ambush. I hesitated in the middle of the asphalt, debating on whether to go back and offer to referee Ronnie and Louis fighting. It wasn't kindness that made me want to go back. It was cowardice. I'd have much rather gotten dragged into someone else's fight than face what was waiting for me. Other people's emotional pain, no matter how painful it was, is so much less painful than your own. But Ronnie wouldn't thank me for interfering, and it really wasn't my business. Maybe I'd call her tomorrow and see if she talked, see if there was still enough friendship left to save. I missed her. I stood there in the darkened parking lot, caught between the fight behind me and the fight waiting for me. Strangely, I didn't want to fight with anyone. I was suddenly tired, so terribly tired, and it had nothing to do with the late hour or a long day. I walked to the waiting men, and no one smiled at me, but then I didn't smile at them either. I guess it wasn't a smiling kind of conversation. Nathaniel says you didn't want to dance with him, Micah said. Not true, I said. I danced twice. What I didn't want to do was play kissy face in front of the cops. Micah looked at Nathaniel. Nathaniel looked at the ground. You kissed me early in front of Detective Arnett. Why was this different? I kissed you to give Jessica the clue to stop hitting on you because you wanted me to save you from her. He raised his eyes and they were 2 pretty wounds, so pain-filled. So you only kissed me to save me? Not because you wanted to? Oh, hell. Out loud, I tried again, though the sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach told me that I was going to lose this argument. Lately, around Nathaniel, I always felt like I was doing something wrong, or at least not right. That isn't what I meant. It's what you said, Micah said. Don't you start, I said, and I heard the anger in my voice before I could stop it. The anger had been there already. I just hadn't been aware of it. I was angry a lot, especially when I wasn't comfortable. I liked anger better than embarrassment. Marianne, who was helping me to learn control the ever growing list of psychic powers, said that I used anger to shield myself from any unwanted emotion. She was right. I accepted that she was right, but she and I hadn't come up with an alternative solution yet. What's a girl to do if she can't get angry and she can't run away from the problem? What's a girl to do if she can't get angry and she can't run away from the problem? Hell if I know. Marianne had encouraged me to be honest, emotionally honest with myself and those closest to me. Emotionally honest, it sounds so harmless, so wholesome. It's neither. I didn't want to fight, I said. There, that was honest. None of us do, said Micah. Just hearing him be so calm helped the anger ease away. Nathaniel pushed it on the dance floor and the door rose early. I felt it, Micah said. Me too, Jason said. But you don't feel it now, do you? Nathaniel said. His eyes were almost accusing and his voice held its own thin edge of anger. I wasn't sure if I'd ever heard him get that close to being angry. Anita is getting better control over the door, Micah said. Nathaniel shook his head, hugging himself tight. It reminded me of the way that Ronnie had been holding herself. If it had been you, she would have just come out into the parking lot and fed. Not willingly, I said. Yes, you would, he said, and his eyes held the anger his voice had held. I'd never seen those lavender eyes angry before. Not like this. It was strangely unnerving. I would not have sex in the parking lot of Larry and Tammy's wedding reception if I had a choice. The angry gaze searched my face as if it was trying to find something. Why not feed here? Because it's tacky. And if Zabrowski ever got wind of it, I'd never live it down. Jason patted his arm. See, it wasn't you she turned down. It was that she doesn't want to fool around at Larry's wedding. Just not her style. Nathaniel glanced at Jason, then back at me. Some strange tension that I didn't quite understand seemed to flow away from him. The anger began to fade from his eyes. I guess you're right. Well, if we don't want to be fooling around in the parking lot, then we need to get going, Micah said. The Ardor doesn't like being denied. When it does come back tonight, it won't be gentle. I sighed. He was right. That bit of metaphysical bravado on the dance floor would have had all sorts of consequences later tonight. When the Ardor rose again, I would be forced to feed. There would be no stuffing it back in the box. It was almost as if being able to stop the Ardor in the tracks to completely turn it off had once filled me, pissed the Ardor off. I knew it was a psychic gift and that psychic gifts don't have feelings and don't carry grudges, but sometimes it felt like this one did. I'm sorry, Anita. I wasn't thinking. Nathaniel looked so discouraged that I had to hug him, a quick hug, more sisterly than anything else, and he had responded to my body language and didn't try and hold me close. He let me hug him and step away. Nathaniel wasn't usually almost painfully attuned to my body language. It was one of the things that allowed him to share my bed for months without violating those last taboos. Let's go home, I said. That's my cue to part company, Jason said. You're welcome to bunk over if you want, I said. He shook his head. No, since I'm not needed to referee the fight or for sage advice, I'll go home. Besides, I couldn't stand listening to the three of you get all hot and heavy and not be invited to play. He laughed and added, don't get mad, but having once been included, it's harder to be excluded. I fought the blush that burned at my face, which always seemed to make the blush darker and harder. Jason and I had had sex once before I realized it was possible to love someone to death with the ardor. Nathaniel had collapsed at work and had been off feeding schedule for a few days. Micah hadn't been in the house and the ardor had risen early, hours early. It had been interference from Belmore, the originator of John Claude's bloodline, and the first, to my knowledge, possessor of the ardor. It only ran through her line of vamps, nowhere else. The fact that I carried it had raised very interesting metaphysical questions. Belle had wanted to understand what I was, and she had also thought it would raise some hell. Bella was a good business-y vampire, but when she could take care of business and make trouble, all the better. So it hadn't been my fault, but my choices had limited to taking Nathaniel and possibly killing him, or letting Jason take one for the team. He'd been happy to do it, very happy, and strangely our friendship had survived it. But every once in a while I couldn't pretend it hadn't happened, and that made me uncomfortable. I love the fact that I can make you blush now, he said. I don't. He laughed, but there was something in his eyes that was more serious than laughter. I need to tell you something in private before you go running off, though. I didn't like how suddenly serious he was. I'd learned in the last few months that Jason used his teasing and laughter as a shield to hide a rather insightful and intelligent that was sometimes so perceptive it was painful. I didn't like his request for privacy either. What couldn't he say in front of Micah and Nathaniel, and why? Out loud I said, okay. I started off to the far side of the parking lot, away from the Jeep and further away from Ronnie and Louie, who even a glance showed they were still having a peaceful screaming match. When the shade of the trees that edged the shop parking lot lay cool above us, I stopped and turned to Jason. What's up? The thing on the dance floor was sort of my fault. In what way your fault? He actually looked embarrassed, which you didn't see much from Jason. He wanted to know how I got to have sex with you, real sex, the very first time I helped feed the ardor. Technically, it was the second. He frowned at me. Yeah, but that was when the ardor was brand new and we didn't have intercourse, and there were 3 other men in the bed. I turned away so the dark would hide the blush, though truthfully he couldn't probably smell it on my hot skin. Sorry I brought it up, you're saying? He's been in your bed for what, 4 months? Something like that, I said. And he's not had intercourse yet. Hell, he's not had an orgasm. Not a real orgasm with like release and everything. I couldn't blush harder or my head would explode. I'm listening. Anita, you can't keep pretending that Nathaniel isn't real. That's not fair. Maybe not, but I had no idea that you weren't at least doing him orally or by hand or watching him do himself something, anything. I shook my head and looked at the ground. I couldn't think of anything good to say. If I hadn't just had my physical peek inside Nathaniel's head, I would probably have gotten angry or rude. But I'd seen too far into Nathaniel's pain and couldn't pretend anymore. Couldn't ignore it. I thought that by not doing the final step that it would make it easier when the ardor gets under control and I don't need a palm to saying anymore. Is that still your idea, to dump him when you have enough control that you don't need to feed? What am I supposed to do? Keep him like a pet or a really big child? He's not a child. He's not a pet, Jason said. And the first hint of anger was in his voice. I know that. And that's the problem, Jason. If the ardor hadn't, I'd have been Nathaniel's Nimrod and his friend, and that would have been it. Now he's suddenly in this capacity that I don't even have a name for it. He's your palm to sang like Jean Claude. You and Jean Claude aren't fucking and no one gets upset about that. No, because he lets me date if I have lovers, if I want them. I'm encouraging Nathaniel to date. I want him to have girlfriends, and you're not so subtly encouraging to look at other women made him turn to me for advice. What do you mean? He doesn't want to date other people. He wants to be with you and Micah and the vampires. He doesn't want another woman in his life. I'm not the woman in his life. Yes, you are. You just don't want to be. I leaned against one of the narrow tree trunks. Oh, Jason, what am I going to do? Finish what you started with Nathaniel. Be his lover. I shook my head. I don't want that. The hell you don't. I just watched the way you react around him. Lust isn't enough, Jason. I don't love him. I argue that too. I don't love him the way I need to. Need to? For what, Anita? Need to for your conscience, your sense of morality? Just give him some of what he needs, Anita. Don't break yourself doing it. Bend a little. That's all I'm asking. You said the thing on the dance floor was sort of your fault. You never explained that. I told Nathaniel that you don't like passive men. You like a little dominant, a little pushiness. Not much, but enough so that you aren't the one that says, yes, we'll have sex. You need someone to take a little of the responsibility off your shoulders. I stared at him, studied that face. Is that all it is for me, Jason? I just need someone else to spread the guilt around so I can fuck? He winced. That isn't what I said. It was close enough, I said. Get mad if you want, but that isn't what I said or what I meant. Get mad at me, but don't take it out on Nathaniel. If I was raised that if you had sex, it was a commitment. I still believe that. You don't feel committed to me, he said, as if it was just a fact, nothing personal. No, we're friends, and I was sort of a friend in need, but you're a growing up, and you understand what it is. I'm not sure Nathaniel is enough of a grown-up to understand that. Hell, he can't even say no to women who are almost strangers. He turned down at least 3 dance offers while we were talking, and I know for a fact that he turned down the beautiful Jessica Arnett for a date. He did? Really? Jason nodded. Yep, I didn't think he'd be able to say no. He's been practicing. Practicing? He tells you no sometimes, doesn't he? I thought about it. Sometimes he won't repeat conversations to me or tell me things. He says I'll get mad, so I should ask the other person. You wanted no, demanded that Nathaniel be more responsible for himself. You made him get his driver's license and you forced him to be less dependent, right? Yeah. But you didn't think what it would mean, did you? What do you mean? You wanted him to be independent, to think for himself, to decide what he wanted out of life, right? Yeah, in fact, I said almost exactly that to him. I wanted him to decide what he wanted to do with his life. I meant he's only 20 for God's sake. And he's decided he wants to be with you, Jason said. And his voice got softer. That is not a life decision. I meant a career choice. Maybe go back to college. He's got a job, Anita. And he makes better money as a stripper than most college graduates do. You can't strip forever, I said. And most marriages don't last forever either. My eyes must have gotten too wide because he hurried with his next words. What I mean is that you treat everything like it's a forever question, like you can't change your mind later. I don't mean to imply that Nathaniel wants you to make an honest man of him. That never came up, honest. Well, that's a relief. You'll need a palm to sing for years, Anita, years. John Claude said maybe in months I'd be able to feed from a distance and not need the up close and personal stuff. You've made progress on going longer between feedings, Anita, but you haven't made much progress on truly controlling the door. I controlled it on the dance floor. He sighed. You shut it down on the dance floor. That's not control, not really. If you have a gun, you can lock it in the gun safe, but that doesn't teach you how to shoot it. A gun analogy? You've been thinking on this for a while, haven't you? Ever since Nathaniel told me you haven't been allowing him release during the feedings. Allow? He didn't ask. How was I supposed to know? He wasn't even doing himself in private. I mean, I didn't tell him not to. You play with yourself and it feels good, but it doesn't meet the real need. I pushed back my tight into the tree, as if the solid wood would catch me because I felt like falling into a chasm so deep that I'd never get out. I don't know if I can do Nathaniel and still look at myself in the mirror in the morning. Why does Nathaniel bother you so much? Because he confuses my radar. I have friends, I have boyfriends, I have people who depend on me, people I take care of. I do not fuck the people I take care of. It could be like taking advantage of your position. And Nathaniel falls into the taking care of category, he asked. Yes. You think by having sex that you're taking advantage? Yes! That's not how Nathaniel sees it. I know that, Jason, now. God. Don't you just love Jason? Don't you just love him? I don't want to keep Nathaniel just to make my life easier. That's evil. Jason let out a big sigh. Are you really this slow or just driving me crazy on purpose? What? I said. He shook his head. Anita, what I'm trying to say is that Nathaniel doesn't feel used. He feels useful. He doesn't need a girlfriend because he thinks he already has one. He doesn't want to date because he's already living with someone. He doesn't need to look for a place of his own because he already has one. Micah knows that. Nathaniel knows that. The only person that doesn't know that is you. You know, Jason, I can't say you're wrong about any of it, but I hate you right this second. Hate me if you want, but I'm tired of watching people have everything their heart desires and throw it away. This isn't what my heart desired, I said. Maybe not, but it's what you needed. You need a wife in the 1950s sort of way. Nobody, doesn't everybody, I said. He grinned at me. No, some people would like to be the wife, but I just can't find a woman who's man enough to keep me in the style to which I have not yet become accustomed. It made me smile. Damn it, you're the only one who can say shit like that this to me and not have me pissed at them for days or longer. How do you get away with it? He planted a quick kiss on my lips, more brotherly than anything. I don't know how I get away with it, but if I could bottle it, Jean Claude would pay a fortune for it. Maybe not just Jean Claude. Maybe not. He stepped back, smiling, but his eyes held that serious look again. Be happy, Anita. Go home. Don't freak out. Just go home and be happy. Be happy and let everyone around you be happy. Is that so hard? Please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Thank you.